Hello everyone, and welcome to this morning's webinar on completion by design. This is the final installment in a five-part series of programs on this topic that began last December. Our subject today is Front Door Experiences and Advising. I'm Bill Joyner of North Carolina Community College System's Learning Solutions Center, and I'll be your host for the session. Our guest this morning is Keisha Jones of Guilford Technical Community College in Jamestown, North Carolina. Keisha is now in her 10th year in higher education, having started her career with career counseling and then moving to academics in collegiate athletics. She holds a bachelor's degree in political science and a master's in counseling, both from North Carolina A&T University. She's the director of the Student Success Center at Guilford Tech, overseeing advising, new student orientation, career services, international students, and co-supervising disability access services for all of their campuses. She has been with the college since June of 2012. She arrived at GTCC right when they were starting to implement the changes proposed during the planning stages of the Completion by Design initiative. I'm going to turn the program over to Keisha in just a moment. But first, if during today's presentation you have any questions, I encourage you to ask them. You can do that by typing them into the Q&A box located in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. Keisha will address them during or after the presentation. For those questions that require additional time to answer, you'll be notified when we find the information you need. Today's presentation is being recorded and should be available on successnc.org within about a week. You'll get an automatic notification when it's posted there, where it will join our growing collection of interesting webinars and videos. Now, without any further ado, I'm going to turn the program over to Keisha Jones. It's all yours, Keisha.
Good morning, everyone. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Good morning, everyone. I appreciate everyone taking the time this morning to listen to all of the things that I have to say about what we're doing at Guilford Tech. We are doing a lot, and I'm going to try to go over as much as we can. As Bill indicated, you can type questions, and I'll answer those questions as we're going through the presentation instead of waiting to the end. And if there's anything that I can't answer, I will get back to you all via email with that information. So to start, I want to start with going over where we were before we started this process and why we decided that we wanted to change the process. So to begin with, we somewhat had a split advising model here at GTCC. In our catalog, it indicated that the students would see their technical faculty, for technical programs, see their faculty members, and for students who were transferring, they would either see their faculty that were in the arts and sciences programs, or they would see a professional advisor on my staff. The culture came to be that the students came to the Student Success Center, or which was previously the Advising Center, to get any type of service, whether they were in a technical program or a transfer program. The students started coming to us. So we began to do about 80% of the advising at the college. The other issue that we had was that students waited to the last minute to do things, whether it was register, get advised to be able to register, or even attend orientation. So those were issues that we were having when it pertained to advising. Other issues that we were having were with orientation. Our orientation sessions were 300-person sessions. We did them attached to a registration period, so we only did them if we were in registration for a particular term. We didn't have any caseloads, which goes back to advising, but we didn't have any caseloads, so when students would come through orientation or come to the Advising Center or Student Success Center, they would see a different person every time they came. There was no consistency with that. We didn't have any mandatory advising periods outside of orientation. With our orientation, all new students are required to attend orientation before they're able to register. They have what we call a SOAR hold and perk that prevents them from registering, and once they come to the orientation, the hold is removed. So that was really the only true mandatory time a student came. Then if you had a bachelor's degree or higher, you didn't have to come to orientation. So there was a possibility that we could have students here that will matriculate and never see anyone if they didn't have any things that stopped them as they were going. The other issue that we had was that we didn't have a true retention program in place where if a student had below a 2.0, they had to come see someone, but we didn't have anything put in place that would really help that student get above a 2.0 and maintain a 2.0 or higher. So with that, looking at our student culture, again, our students were accustomed to seeing advisors in the Student Success Center instead of going to their faculty, and also we would register the students. So the students didn't really take initiative in registering themselves. Our new and our current students wait to the last minute to do everything. So a lot of times that would, in the advising center, that could cause long waits. So some people would wait or some people wouldn't wait and they would end up leaving. So it was a possibility that we wouldn't be able to service that student and they would advise themselves. And a lot of times advising themselves, generally they were doing that incorrectly. So students were waiting to the last minute to do things. And then when they did come to advising sessions or orientation, they were never prepared with the things that they needed to do. So a lot of times students would come, wait an hour, 2 hours to see someone, and then end up having to come back because they didn't prepare prior to coming. Our faculty staff culture, again, most of our technical programs, they do a really good job of trying to advise their students and promoting that their students come to them instead of coming to us to be advised. But again, the culture for the student was to come to the advising center. The advising center was where you got everything done that you needed to get done for the college. 80% of the advising was done by my staff at all 3 campuses. And then faculty and staff also felt that students were underprepared. So our students were underprepared, and a lot of the feedback that we got from our faculty and staff when we did focus groups and surveys were that the students were underprepared for orientation, and a lot of that was they wouldn't do placement testing before coming, they wouldn't bring their transcripts, they wouldn't have the things that we needed in order to assure that the student was successful. Some of the background in the decision-making process and the things that we decided that we were going to change. Prior to me coming, they had done a lot of research with faculty and staff with orientations, and I'm sorry, not orientations, but surveys and focus groups. They surveyed the college, they surveyed the students, and based off of that information is how we determined which areas we were going to change in advising and with orientation. Along with that, the Completion by Design team, implementation team, was comprised of student services, staff, and faculty. So we brought a group together. We all sat down and hashed out the issues that everyone on campus felt that we had with advising and with orientation, and we had a discussion. Then we brought in a consultant from NACADA who we talked about the issues that we had with them, and then they gave us feedback. It was a 2.5-day presentation that she did with us, so they gave us feedback off of the issues that we presented to them and all of the different scenarios that people felt that we would be able to fix those particular things. Okay. Bumps along the way. So we started with a very very large group, and then we went into a smaller group, and then our group got smaller and smaller. With the large group, we tried to have as many participants in each area as we could. We didn't have students as a part of that. What we did to get the student feedback was the student surveys. But once we went from the larger group, we went to a smaller group that consisted of myself, the project director, Christy Short, and our admissions, director of our admissions, and our AVP of instruction and student services, and our VPs. They didn't come to every meeting for student services and instruction, but they came to some meetings. So the smaller group, that's what the smaller group comprised of. So the first thing that we began to work on was the new student orientation. as I indicated before, it was a 300-person orientation session that we attached to a registration period. The decisions that we decided to do with that was to make that a 25 to 40-person orientation session and to do those orientation sessions year-round and not attach it to a registration period. We wanted students to be able to come to orientation regardless of when they were planning to enroll, but get that part done. So that was the biggest change that we were going to do with our orientation. And generally in the summer, which is when we did most of our orientations, when we attached them to a registration period, we would service between, I'll say, 500 to 6,500 students. So for us to go from 300 students per session to 25 to 40 students per session, we also had to think about how we would maximize the same amount of numbers, even though we were not going to have those very large sessions. So in the beginning of changing that process, we decided that we would have to do more orientations more frequently. So as a part of that, one of the biggest obstacles that we had with students coming to the college underprepared was that our website didn't really give the student the information that they needed to be prepared in some instances. And we had the information out on the website, but it was hard to find it on the website. So in this process and trying to change advising and trying to change orientation, we also felt that we needed to try to change some other things to assure that students were prepared when they came to those two things. And one of the things that we did with that, and I'm going through my slides a little faster to get to a picture, but we created the Path to Success. This is a place on our website where a student can go, and each one of those buttons are clickable, and when they click on the button, it will give them the information needed prior to coming to orientation. We wanted the students to do all of those things before they actually signed up for an orientation. Now, one thing doesn't prevent a student from doing the next thing, so if they don't click on Find a Career Path, it will not stop them from signing up for an orientation. But the hope was that if students saw things in an order, that they would know that, well, okay, I need to do this first, and then I need to do this, and then I need to do that. And then they could go to one place and have all of that information there. With the orientation, we also decided in an effort to make the student prepared when they came to the session to include a pre-orientation. That's something that we didn't have before. Our face-to-face orientation generally was about 4 hours. We spent 2 hours talking about the parking, talking about speed limit, telling them not to sag their pants, telling them not to smoke on campus, things of that nature. And we wanted to be able to do all of those things prior to them coming. So our pre-orientation, it was comprised of going over the rules and the regulations of the college. We talked about some career things. We brought up the CFNC career interest profiler that we have under the Find Career Path under the first option to make the students think, oh, okay, I really did need to do that. So we talked about that. So all of those policies and procedure type things we took out of our face-to-face orientation and put in our pre-orientation. Amy has a question. How many orientation sessions are offered each semester? Before we changed our orientation, we probably did about 30. Now we do about 200 a year because we do them year-round. We do them every week at every campus. So on Monday we do High Point campus. Tuesday we do either Aviation or Jamestown campus. Wednesday we do Greensboro campus, and Thursday we'll either do Aviation or Jamestown campus, just alternating which one we didn't do on Tuesday. So now we do more sessions. When we initially started the process, in order to get the same numbers that we would normally get if we did a 300-person session, we did 2 a day. So we did every day at every campus twice a day. So we would have a session in the morning from 8 to 1, and then we would have a session in the afternoon from 3 to 7 or 4 to 8. And we also did Saturdays. So in the beginning, changing the process and still trying to hit the same numbers that we would normally hit if we were doing 300, we did have to do a lot of orientation sessions. I don't have an orientation person. All of my staff are required to do an extra project outside of the advising responsibilities that they had. And I did have one person, she focused on orientation when we were implementing the new orientation. We implemented that April last year. She solely worked on that. I had to help her with sessions, and I had to hire a lot of part-time staff to assist with the orientations in order to assure that we were able to do those orientations 2 a day when we initially started. The other thing with orientation that we changed, okay, so the student has to do the pre-orientation. Our pre-orientation is online. It's in our Moodle site. That's the point with the path to success that we start documenting what the student does. So the student will log into our Moodle site with their Titan username and password, and then they will do pre-orientation. It takes about 20 minutes for them to do. They'll go through all of the slides, and at the end it gives them a quiz or test. They do many quizzes throughout, but they do one large test at the end. The student has to make a 90 on the test in order to be able to sign up for orientation. We have an in-house system that was built for our orientation, and I believe in you all's Moodle site, Susan put that document out there. If she didn't, I'll send it out to you all. But we have a system that was built in-house that our students utilize to sign up for orientation. That system speaks to Moodle. So once a student completes their pre-orientation, and then they go into our orientation site to sign up, when they log in with their Titan username and password, if they did not complete the pre-orientation, or if they did not get a 90 on the exam for pre-orientation, there will be a pop-up telling them that they don't meet the requirements to sign up for an orientation. So that was one of the big changes that we brought with the things that we decided we wanted to do with orientation. Another change that we decided that we wanted to do was do our orientations by program. So our orientations before, students, it didn't matter what your program was. We would put 300 seats out there, and you could register for the 300 seats. Now each orientation date is a specific program. We may do 1 or 2 programs, especially for our smaller programs. We'll lump some together, but we will alternate every week which date is for a particular program. And based off of your program, when they go into the orientation site, the system will see what their program is listed, what they put on their application as their program and what we have in Colleague, and it will give them a date based off of that. The other change we made with orientation was before, if you had 2 or more developmental, you were required to come to orientation, or required to come to orientation and to do your orientation face-to-face. Now, if you have a reading developmental or a writing developmental, you're required to come, and you're required to come face-to-face. If you don't have those, then you could do our online orientation. Our online orientation mimics our face-to-face orientation. It's set up very similar to our pre-orientation. It's online. They go through the process, but with the exam at the end of that online orientation, the student has to get 100. The other thing we changed with our orientation was who had to attend. Before, if a student had an associate's degree or higher, they didn't have to come. Now, if you have an associate's degree, you have to do orientation, but you automatically get the online orientation. We make all of our students, regardless if you have a bachelor's degree, if you're a visiting student, new student, right out of high school, you have to do our pre-orientation. Everybody has to do our pre-orientation because it goes over the rules of a college. The other big piece to our orientation was involving faculty. We always involve faculty in our orientations as much as we could, but we wanted students to have that first point of contact with their faculty members, which is why we decided to do the by-program dates. One, we could get more faculty to participate in the orientation if we didn't have every date with every program. And then secondly, we wanted students to be able to have those conversations. We even have our pre-limited enrollment or our limited enrollment programs come and speak to those students that are in pre-limited enrollment. And the reason for that was because a lot of our students, they don't get to touch those faculty until they're accepted into the program. And then once they're in the program, a lot of times that's when they found out information about the program that would have made a big difference in whether or not they actually stayed in that program. So now, even if a student is not accepted into one of our limited enrollment programs, they still get to meet with that faculty member at that orientation session. Then we give the students a 2-semester plan. Because students are coming and they may be coming for a term that that the registration period is not open yet, then we give them a 2-semester plan, we lay it out, and we give them alternate courses in the case that what they're trying to register for isn't offered when it is their time to register. And then either myself or my assistant director, we communicate with those students throughout the term until it is time for them to register to assure that they come back and register. So we send phone calls to them through communications management, and we send emails. And I have another question. As Brian, as far as those numbers, we do have them, but I don't know them off the top of my head. When we originally started, his question was what was our what was the % retention for students not attending an orientation, and then the fall to fall retention. When we originally started with the mandatory orientation, our fall to fall persistence for students that attended orientation was over 50%. And now, since we've implemented these new changes, I don't know that number off the top of my head, but I will get it to you next week. Okay, so those are the changes that we made with our orientation process. We still do the orientations year-round. We don't do 2 a day. We did the 2 a day from April to August last year, and then we've gone to 1 a day every day, every week at every campus. What I will say in doing that, we still, every once in a while, have to do a 250-person session, again, because a lot of our students wait till the last minute to do things, and we still want to make sure that we get those students here and get them through. But we don't alternate what we do to our orientation. We still do the orientations the same way. Even if we have the 250, we still try to get the faculty to come. We don't do program specific. We will do all programs, but we designate those dates early as tentative dates and go ahead and send that information out to faculty, and then they determine whether or not they will be able to participate in those larger sessions or not. But we generally have a really good turnout, especially when we have those large groups. Okay. So, and a lot of this stuff I have skipped over. As far as our road to how we got here, when we changed the we started with orientation first. So that was the first thing that we did in April last year. We worked on everything, and we gave one very large proposal to Dr. Parker, but we started implementing things in bits and pieces. So the first thing that we did was our orientation. And with that, we had Dr. Parker go through the orientation process as if he was a student. So we gave him a welcome letter. We had him sit down and go through pre-orientation, and then we went through the orientation process as if he were a student. And then he approved that in March, and we rolled it out April 1st, and we've been doing our new orientation since April 2013. Now, with our advising model, again, we did not have students assigned to a particular advisor. We just went to that starting actually today. It's official today. We've been doing a lot of training with our faculty as far as getting them prepared for that. So again, technical programs were really, really good about seeing their students, making sure they communicated with their students, getting their students to come see them, to be advised. But again, students were not used to going to see their faculty. They were always used to coming to see us. So one of the biggest things that we wanted to do was to provide the student with some continuity, allow them to build rapport with someone, and have the same person. Every time they come to my area, they're not guaranteed to see the same person. So they could see one person, and one person gave them a set of information, and then the next person may interpret what the student was asking a different way, and then they would give a different set of information. And then they may end up going to see their faculty, and then they got another set of information. So we did get a lot of complaints from students wanting to make sure that they saw the same person every time they came in to see someone. So one of the big things that we wanted to do was to go to caseloads with our faculty, that every full-time faculty would have a caseload, and my area would also have a caseload. So in doing that, we looked several times in how we would go about the caseloads and how frequently a student would have to see someone. One of the biggest things that our VP of Instruction and Dr. Parker wanted from us was to assure that the caseloads weren't too large for the faculty members, because they're still going to be teaching and still have their teaching responsibilities and obligations, and we really hadn't discussed would we give them release time or not with the caseload. So the initial thought process was to try to get the caseloads as small as possible. But in doing the research, for some programs, a faculty member could have 75, could have 100, and our initial goal was about 20 to 30 per faculty member. So when we spoke with some of our technical programs that are very large and have few faculty members, so that means that they will have a 70-person caseload or a 100-person caseload, we had conversations with them to see how they would want to split up their caseloads. Would it be an issue to have 70? And for some of our technical programs, again, they were already doing something similar to caseloads, so they didn't have the biggest issue with doing a 70-person or a 100-person caseload. The other thing with the caseload is that we were going into mandatory advising. We don't have our students come in except for orientation. That's the only mandatory period. And if you fall into specific groups, you don't have to come in. So we wanted to implement a way that we saw every student. Originally, we were going to do our mandatory advising at 15, 30, 45, and 60 credit hours. But as we pulled the numbers and we were looking at caseloads and how many assignees a particular faculty member would have, if we did those increments, one, we may not see a student for 2 years, especially if they're a part-time student. Two, it may have a faculty member, if they do have a large caseload of 70 in one semester, may have to see more than half of their caseload. So the more research we did on how we should have people come in, we ended up with going to every other semester. So now our students will do mandatory advising, and they will be assigned a faculty member. With the mandatory advising, what we did was create an advising hold that we put in the perk screen, and once the student gets that hold, they can't register until they meet with their assigned person. So today, officially today, all of our students are able to see their assigned advisor. They either have a faculty member, and this includes arts and sciences and our developmental faculty and all of our technical programs. Anyone that's a full-time faculty member has a caseload. They will be able to see who their person is. They'll get that information on how to contact that person, and all of that information is in Web Advisor. We've been doing training with the faculty since November last year. We created a 8-module training for them. 5 of the modules are online modules where they could do everything in Moodle. We created a class in Moodle for them to go through. They had to do a rotation in the Student Success Center with my staff members. Originally, they were going to have to do 5 hours, but we took it down to 3 hours. They had to do a coaching training. We brought someone in to teach us how to coach the student, how to have a different type of conversation with the student, teach the student how to critically think and how to figure out issues and concerns themselves without us necessarily giving them all of the information. So we had someone come in and train us, and then we went out and trained our faculty on this technique and how to coach students, because a lot of our faculty have not advised in 10 or 15 years. We have some faculty who are new to the college, and depending on the program that they are in, may have never advised. So one of the biggest things in transitioning to more of a faculty advising model was assuring that faculty were comfortable advising. So they did their rotation. We did the coaching training face-to-face, and then we will do the SSP training face-to-face, which we will start actually March 10th. And that would complete their faculty training. Once they did that, they will get a certificate of completion, and they'll be ready to go to work with their students. With the mandatory advising, instead of doing the 15, 30, 45, and 60 credit hours, we decided to do it every other semester. So students will, depending on your term, will get a hold every other semester. This semester, we started with every student that has a fall start date. They received a hold. So those students will not be able to register when we start our registration in April until they meet with their assigned advisor, or actually we changed the name from advisor to faculty coach. So until they meet with that person, they will be prevented from registering. With that, and considering the every other term and the caseloads again range from actually 7 all the way up. Our largest caseload for a faculty member, I believe, is 125. They have about half of that list will have a hold this term. For some, less than half have a hold for this term that they will have to meet with. We are promoting with the students and with the faculty that they make arrangements instead of doing a walk-in basis to see their faculty member. They make arrangements with their faculty and make an appointment instead of doing walk-in. One, we want to be considerate of the faculty members' time, and two, we want to make sure that the students are prepared. So we sent out an email to all students. We sent out a physical letter to all students. We did a communications management phone call to all students, giving them all of the information on the change and telling them what they needed to do in order to successfully get through this process with their faculty member. Because it's a very big culture change for us, for faculty and for students. Again, it goes back to students are used to coming to the Student Success Center for everything. And what we're going to do now, we have assignees. Our caseload in my area is about 350 per person. We're going to have to turn students away because we'll only be able to see students that are on our caseload. We wouldn't be able to see a student that's on a faculty member's caseload unless that faculty member is on leave or it's the summer and the faculty member doesn't work in the summer. So that's going to be a big culture shift for our students because our students are used to coming to see us. Last year for my Jamestown campus, we had 41,000 students or 41,000 visits just at the Jamestown campus last year. And at my 2 satellite campuses, for my larger one, we had 15,000, and then the smaller one, we had 10,000. So students are generally used to coming to see us. So that will be a very big transition for our students and our staff. The feedback that we're getting from our faculty members, some are really excited about the change. Some are really concerned about the change. And a lot of that's because some of them haven't advised in a really long time, or as I stated, some new faculty members who, especially in arts and sciences, haven't really done any advising. So they're concerned about what they're going to do and how they're going to work with students. And the model that I have up now is what we gave to all of our faculty members to give them I guess a bird's eye view of how we would do the advising model and how we would go about putting on the holds and how we would make that mandatory for a student. So to make it a little easier for a faculty member, if a student has a 3.0 or higher, they don't have to come in and see their assigned person face-to-face. They could do their appointment or their session with the student via email. They could do it over the phone. We utilize Skype in the Student Success Center, so they could utilize Skype. We're in the process of purchasing an appointment scheduler that also has within that appointment scheduler a whiteboard where the faculty member or staff member could do an online chat session with the student. The student could post documents, the faculty member could post documents, and then it tracks everything that you did with the student and the conversation that you had with the student in that online chat session. So we're trying to give the faculty as many options as we can to assure that the transition is smooth for not only the students but also the faculty, because it is a big change. We're making people see people where we didn't make them do that before, and we are assigning them to a specific person. One of the things that we will be starting next month is our advising month. I traditionally do an advising month every semester, but again, students always, every semester. But again, students always came to my office to be serviced instead of going to their faculty members. So in part of the mailings that we sent out to students, we advertised Advising Month that will start March 3rd and go all the way to the end of April, just because our registration period will begin in April and go all the way to the end of April. But the purpose of the Advising Month is to assure that the students are coming in before they are assigned registration time. But Advising Month will be beginning next week, because our spring break is next week, but our office isn't closed. So we would be able to still service the students on our caseloads, and generally students still come and see us during spring break. And then our schedule will actually be viewable March 10th. Students will be able to register for summer and for fall. This is the first semester that we're doing that. I try to work as closely as I can with our scheduler. I give them all of the dates that we are trying to do orientation, when we would want orientation to start, when we would like the schedule to be viewable, and we discuss with the registrar the registration dates, and everyone is on the same page. So we have a meeting to determine those dates early in advance to assure that once everything starts, the schedule is viewable. So when we are sitting down with students, students do have the schedule to at least be able to look at it and determine whether or not the classes that they're going to want to take are available or even offered that semester. They have the option to come see someone, but they don't have to. It's not mandatory. There's nothing that's going to prevent them from doing anything if they don't come see someone. And then when that student goes on probation, I send out another letter and indicate that they need to communicate with their department chair or division chair about the fact that they're on probation, and that they could also come in to our area and we'll try to assist them with any services on campus that they may need. And one of the changes, or the change that we're doing with that, is now we're going to put holds on our students' accounts. So I'll still send the same email that I generally send when a student goes on warning, but when they go on probation, I'll put a probation hold on their account. The student will not be able to register for the upcoming term until they come to see one of my staff members to discuss what issues they had, why did they go below a 2.0, try to link them to services on campus. And once we've had that conversation and outlined a plan of action for what that student will do to try to pull that 2.0 up and maintain that 2.0, we'll take the hold off. Okay, Amy's question is back up. Have you always done advising for CCPC career? Is that career and college promise students, or is that something that recently began? Amy, do you mean, okay, yeah. We don't, with career and college promise, before Linda Whitlow, that was in a completely different area. We had someone that was designated to work with those students. She recently began to allow those students to come to our orientation session so they get the same information that our general population gets. but we don't really do a lot with Career and College Promise students. Okay, with the caseload, faculty will do more advising, but my staff will also assist with the advising. What we will do is we'll handle those students that are declared Associate in General Education, or we will work with those students that are pre-limited enrollment. We will keep those students until they are accepted into their program, or if they don't get accepted, they change to a different program, and then we'll move them to their assigned person in their particular program. So majority of the advising with the college is going to faculty. We have about 4,000 out of 15,000 students, and those 4,000 are our Associate in General Education and our pre-limited enrollment students. And then we'll get those students that are in transition trying to figure out if they want to change their program, and once they change it, they'll get assigned automatically through DataTel, whomever is next on the list that has the least amount of people. And Andy, I hope I answered your question. With the Early Alert program, we will use Early Alert in SSP. SSP is the Student Success Plan software that we'll be using to keep track of what we're doing with students. In that system, each person that's assigned a person will be required to document what they did with the student in the system and create the student's map. And as a part of that, it has a feature called Early Alert, where faculty can send an Early Alert email indicating that they have concerns about the students. We get to stipulate what concerns we have, or what concerns we are willing to address for the faculty to choose from. Once they send that Early Alert message or email, it comes to an email that we created in my area, earlyalert@gtcc.edu, and then we follow up with the student, figure out what's going on with the student, link the student to other services on campus if necessary, and then communicate back with the person that sent the Early Alert. And if the instructor that sent the Early Alert is not the assigned faculty coach, we will communicate with both of them to let them know the result of working with the student and what happened with the student. Assessing all of these things, every time a student goes through orientation, they complete a survey before they leave. Some students do leave before they can complete a survey, so generally what we will do is also send an email reminder to all of the students that attended orientation that day, asking them to do the orientation survey if they didn't complete the survey when they left orientation. We also, every semester I have IRER send out a survey to our students just to check out our services, see if it's anything that we need to fix or they would like for us to fix. A lot of the things that we changed did come from our student surveys, some of it from our faculty surveys, but a lot of it from our student surveys. And the other thing that we do with the students that come through orientation is they do a survey at the end, but we also, the next term, send them a separate email just to that group of students that came through orientation the term prior to see if what they learned in orientation was a benefit for them or not. So we want to make sure that all of the changes that we implemented in the new orientation process are a benefit to the student, because we took a lot of stuff out of our face-to-face orientation and put it in pre-orientation, so some things we don't even discuss anymore. So we want to make sure that the things that we took out and the things that we're now going over with the student are things that are benefiting the student and have benefited the student since they originally attended that first session. Have a question: how long does the pre-orientation last and how long does the general orientation last? Pre-orientation is online. It takes them about 20 minutes to get through it. It's a PowerPoint presentation that talks to you. Throughout that, it asks questions to see if you are paying attention to what it's going over. And so it doesn't really take them long to do that. It's about a 20-minute session, and then they take their test. They get to take that test as many times as they want until they get a 90. We don't put a restriction on that. The general orientation session lasts about 4 hours. We start with an hour information session. We then go into 30 minutes teaching the student how to utilize Web Advisor, how to check their email, how to have their GTCC email go to an email of choice. And then we break up into groups with advising by program. If we have one large group that's just arts and sciences, we don't necessarily have to break up. We just have students start seeing the faculty and staff that are there to assist. But if we do 2 or 3 programs, some of our smaller programs, we'll break up into groups and allow students to start being advised. If the registration period in which they're trying to attend is open, we have a computer lab that allows the students to go in and register. If the registration period that the student is trying to register for is not open, then the last thing the student will do is a survey, and we give them an option to take a tour of the campus. With our orientation, because we do them by program, we also do the orientation at the location where the program is located. So aviation, all of our aviation orientations are at the aviation campus. If it's a particular program, like our pharmacy tech program is at our High Point campus, so we do all of that at the High Point campus so that the students have the opportunity to tour those facilities. Okay. Does anyone else have any? You're welcome, Andy. Does anyone have any other questions about the advising model or about orientation?
Evidently,
no.
That's it for the questions for the time being. So there's one. Can you send the PowerPoint to us?
Yes.
It'll actually be part of the posting that we do next week.
Okay.
It'll be part of the recording that you can find on successnc.org.
IRER is our institutional research department. The documents that we will have out there, we'll have this PowerPoint. We will have the actual proposal that we sent to Dr. Parker. We'll have the in-house system that we use for orientation, how that works, and how we have it set up to speak to our pre-orientation site. And we will have the Path to Success information out there. We will have the breakdown of the differences between our orientation. We'll have a breakdown of what we do in each part of the orientation, the storyboard for pre-orientation, and the storyboard for online orientation. So all of that information will be a part of what they put out there for the PowerPoint presentation.
So is that pretty much it?
Yes, I am. That's all of it, yes.
Okay. Well, thank you, Keisha. That was very interesting. Nicely done. Very nicely done. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you.
As we wrap up, I would like to remind everyone that today's presentation was recorded and will be available on demand at successnc.org sometime next week. All participants in today's presentation will receive an automated message when that becomes available. I also invite you to check out successnc.org for other helpful webinars and videos. And that pretty much does it for our 5-part webinar series on completion by design. I want to thank all of our presenters over the past several months for their insightful programs, guiding us toward better understanding and implementation of this initiative. Again, a special thank you to our presenter today, Keisha Jones of Guilford Technical Community College. And now, on behalf of North Carolina Community Colleges and all of us on the Learning Solutions team, thanks to all of you for your participation. Until next time, so long, everyone.